Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kayla, founder of Operation Childcare Project. And we also have with us here today, Maria. Say hi, Maria.
Hey.
Maria is a childcare advocate and has just so much knowledge in this space. And so I always appreciate her insights into what we're doing here. If you have any questions throughout this pilot demonstration, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you come upon this later when it's a recording that is out in the metaverse, feel free to still drop your questions in. We will be cycling back to check those. We also have a list of frequently asked questions for this program on our website, and I'll drop all of those links into the chat when we are finished. So today, our focus is on the HomeFront Help Pilot Program. There are many aspects to this program. We want to really look at helpers specifically as we discuss the levels of this. So what is the benefit to helpers? How does this work for helpers? How do the helpers integrate? And then all of our questions around maybe families, community, things like that, we will cover that in a secondary Ask Me Anything. So the HomeFront Help Pilot Program, it is an Operation Childcare Project initiative. We are doing this in partnership with AFA, with the Early Learning Coalition at Emerald Coast, which is where this pilot is rolled out. They're in that Eglin-Hurlburt area, as well as a few other really amazing community partners. All of us together have really put together this, what is this, a community approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a community approach to an issue that we see, and to be honest, we already see people filling. We just want to do this in a safer, more inclusive way, especially for our military families.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the need that we've just alluded to. What we've experienced in our own lives as we've moved around and with the many families we have the privilege of talking to on a daily basis is they need options. We have some excellent programs when it comes to the ability to access care on base for some. Sometimes it's off base with the Child Care in Your Home pilot program with a nanny, right, on your own schedule. Sometimes it's in the community using the fee assistance program for My Child Care in Your neighborhood. All of those are important parts of this suite of options that we want families to have. And sometimes they need a little bit more. I mean, what we've seen in our research is that we've got folks that need a little bit of help in the morning sometimes, whether it's to get to PT, whether it's to get to work. And so maybe they have a secondary solution like the CDC, but they still need help in the morning, whether a spouse is gone or they're a single parent. Sometimes we see folks that need hourly care. We work with a lot of military spouses who, whether they are a single or dual income family, they are going to need, hello. I don't have childcare right now, but I have a friend. They may need a little bit of help going to an appointment, whether it's their own medical appointment, right? Sometimes you can't bring kids to another child's appointment or your own appointment. And so the idea here is, where are folks going to help? We've moved all our military families away, for the most part, away from their families. And so getting that community going right away is important. And we want that and we encourage that. And we want them to have some safe options. So sometimes for most of our families, based on where they're located or their income, your traditional options aren't going to work. And so an occasional option is what we're going after here. And so we're really excited for HomeFront Help and the helpers that are going to be a part of this.
Absolutely. We are looking for what we see as part of this landscape study we did, as part of the research that we've done, is that when families are asking for help, there are people who are stepping up, and that is our people in our community. Families sometimes feel like maybe they don't have any other options. They're a little weary about hiring someone that they met through social media, which is understandable. And what we want to do is really just empower those people who are already doing this work, who are already stepping up, who are already serving their community, to fill the gaps that Maria is talking about here, to fill that space, that interim, short-term, sometimes long-term, but nannies they're not cost-effective for a lot of families.
Yeah.
And what we end up seeing is that if a family can find someone who is background checked, who is CPR certified, who does have training or experience in early childhood development, they can't afford them. And so this is really just that interim piece. What can we do to bridge that gap?
Mommy, yeah, absolutely.
So we have a few examples here for you as to what our use cases are. Now, if you go into literally any Facebook group of military families, you're probably going to come across about 1,000 of your own use cases. these are ones that, we see reoccurring pretty frequently. Just PCSing and processing, haven't built that community yet, to Maria's point. Not really sure who to access.
Well, and really quick, Kayla, on that, there are programs out there that are supposed to address this specific need, right? Where folks are eligible for PCS or deployment care. And what we're seeing is that depending on the location, I know where I'm at, we don't have any FCC providers, right? So they're not going to be able to access that care. Excuse me.
You're okay. And to the point, if you look here at our case too, families trust the CDC. They trust when they know that the people watching their children have been vetted and have been trained. And that is why, as we built out this training for our helpers, as we examined, what should be included in this professional development toolkit, we did look to the DoD standard. So what we ended up doing as part of this, and we'll kind of talk about it a little bit later, is what does the DoD require of the providers for their childcare in your home pilot program? So the pilot program that they're running, what do they require? And how can we meet that as well as exceed that, taking into account what the community needs? And so the use cases here are how are we meeting that, and then also bridging those additional gaps. Okay, so if you wondered, how does this actually work? I know there are a lot of questions around this, and so I want to be really diligent about answering them. This is how, if you are one of our helpers and you're going through our cohort, you've completed our cohort, now you're officially a HomeFront helper, this is how families will get to you. So you are absolutely not our employee. You are welcome to advertise yourself as a helper. If families reach out to us and say, hey, we saw this person say that they're a HomeFront Help, they went through your program, did they go through your program? We're happy to verify that for you. Families who reach out to us through our case management, so something we're already doing nationwide is our case management. If families in that area are reaching out to us through our case management and they're saying, I just need help now, I need help tomorrow, I need help in this interim, we will take them in through our case management. They will have access to these HomeFront helpers because our team is going to help them in drafting that ad. This is an option for them, right, Maria?
Absolutely. Yeah. Giving them, this is meant to we're just seeing this opportunity in the area, right? Where families, based on what we're seeing, maybe sometimes don't know how to ask for what they need and represent themselves well when they're trying to attract the right people for their family. We all have different personalities and different needs. And so we're excited to help folks on that. So that's on the family side. And then also on the helper side. Do you want to talk about the professional support we're providing the helpers?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, here, I want to skip over a slide here and kind of just talk about this piece real quick.
Yeah.
So this is part of what our HomeFront Help success toolkit looks like. So in matching kind of that DoD requirement, there are background checks. All of this is going to be done during that cohort weekend. So November 16th and 17th, if you're in the Eglin, Hurlburt area. So everything that the DoD requires, of course, as well as training hours, early childhood education. We're also lining that up with what Florida requires, since that is where this pilot is. So you are meeting the requirements on multiple fronts by going through this program. We are also offering this personal ad in provider education. You are not our employees if you're a helper who goes through this. We are simply giving you the tools that you need to succeed, and also giving families your information, cycling them through to you so that you can serve them and they can feel secure in that service. As part of this is ongoing training and support. So we have, if she has been on our Ask Me Anything before, Yvonne Finity, she is famously known from Nanny 911, but she has a really expansive knowledge on not just how do you serve families as a provider, but how can providers also help, or how do providers serve families, but also how can families make this an easier transition for their helpers? How can you serve in the local community? What's new in early childhood education? What do you do if you have a child, you're not sure how to play with them, right? Maybe they're 9 months old and you're like, what do I do? Because you've never done this before. So how do I engage this child? So all of our helpers who go through this do get 2 hours of one-on-one consultation with every year with our resident experts. You also do get a $250 stipend just for completing this training. So it is free training to you. And we think it's important that you're compensated for your time of doing this training. If you were working under a professional capacity for a company, you would be compensated for it. But just because you're not going to be working for us directly doesn't mean that you shouldn't still be compensated for that education and training that you're getting just to serve the community around you. And then we also have built in ongoing incentives for taking those opportunities. So to that point of how these families reach out to you, you don't have to take the families who come through. So if we send you an email blast, you don't have to take that job, that position, that ad hoc, the emergency, whatever it might be. But if you do, we are working on ways of thanking you for doing that, thanking you for serving that community.
Let's be clear, it's going to be money. Like, it's going to be, right? I mean, this is, the helpers are,
high five.
Yes, the helpers are making this happen. And we're just so excited about gathering the data and demonstrating this harm reduction model in the community. And so these helpers are, they're so important to us, and we're really excited. We don't know who they are yet. I mean, right? We're one step before that. So maybe it's you. We can't wait to answer any questions. So let's keep going.
So the last piece I want to touch on right here is just our substitute provider program. So what we're doing with this HomeFront Help, it's not the first time that you may have heard of something similar to this from Operation Childcare. So it is a lessons learned second iteration of a pilot program that's already been run once. This time we are taking all the best pieces of that pilot. We are working with our local community, but we're also adding in a substitute provider program. So what this means is that 6 helpers who want to do substitute provider work, we have partnered with Kids Discovery, and they have 3 locations. They accept military fee assistance, so you're still going to be serving those military families. And sometimes they just need short-term help. Sometimes they have someone, we see this nationwide, they have someone who had to quit suddenly. They have someone who's sick. They have someone who is about to give birth, and they need staff, just short-term stopgap. So maybe it's a couple weeks, maybe it's a couple months. They have partnered with us to utilize these 6 providers to step in those areas, which will give not only the helpers going through our program more consistent work, right? So like more consistent, reliable, what's coming, employment opportunities, but it also helps our local provider base, because we know it can be exhausting. We know you can get burned out. And so being able to kind of switch providers in and out as well, honestly, it serves the entire community. So if that's something that any helper is interested in, maybe you don't want to commit to working someplace for years and you just want to give it a try, you're in college, for early childhood education, whatever that might be, this is an option to you as well as we go through this program. Yeah. And so this is really more of what OCC Project as a whole is doing. We want our helpers who are looking at this to know it's not just you solving this entire crisis. I mean, you are pivotal. Like, you are where this is going to kind of orbit around. You're the sun in this situation. But
I appreciate the space joke there, Kayla. Thanks for getting it in there.
I can't unthink it. The OCC Project is still going to continue supporting this pilot and the families and everyone involved, as we always have. So it is not just these sponsored spouse scholarships that are going towards this professional development opportunity. And I know it's a spouse, but it could also be the local community. We do not believe that every spouse wants to be a childcare provider. Yeah. And that is not the intention here. Yes. We just know that military spouses are overeducated compared to their peers. They are underemployed, and a lot of you have degrees in early childhood education already.
Yeah. And Kayla, when we did the landscape study to understand this area, what we came across was that a lot of our military families are in this area not for a long time, which makes it even more difficult when you're trying to seek some sort of employment, whether you want to or need to for your family. And so that's why I'm really excited about the substitute pipeline, because if folks are there for, let's say, their spouse or is in one of the schools for it's less than 12 months, and they're looking for something, or they're thinking ahead to the holidays and their schedule, kids are back in school as of last month. And now they're thinking about, hey, what do I want to do? Because I can do something a little bit different. That's that flexibility that we're really excited about with either side of the demo.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that back up, because yes, we know that you guys are very transitionary in that area. And honestly, there's a lot of logistical hurdles in that area as well.
Right.
And so this presents that flexibility without that long-term commitment. We are still going to be serving families in the area. And what that means is we're still doing our case management. So throughout this, we are still helping families. If this is your short-term option, your stopgap option, how do we get you into long-term sustainable support? We're also still doing our resource vetting. And as a matter of fact, I am really excited about how many additional resources we're going to have access to as part of this. So we are still reaching out to programs, to organizations, offering input and insight from this program to them to figure out how can we create additional resources for our military veteran families to leverage in this area, and ones that work, ones that meet their need. And then, of course, the provider pipeline, all part of our harm reduction method here. And to Maria's point, really fitting what we have seen in that landscape study. In case you wanted a very 10,000 foot overview of how it works, we are, like I said, partnered with the local community. So you'll probably be seeing a lot of social media, maybe some press releases come out here soon about the work that we're doing and encouraging people to sign up to be a helper. We will be digging into those applications here in the next few weeks. And so you'll start hearing back from us about what those next steps are. You'll be invited to this weekend training for the background checks and fingerprints. And honestly, it's still going to be a great time. Like, there's going to be swag bags, there's going to be activities. We're providing breakfast, lunch. Like, we are covering the gambit here. And then you still get a stipend for your time at the end. So it's a win-win all the way around. You then get to join our roster, so our pre-vetted roster here. And then, of course, as we kind of already explained, depending on what role you came in as a helper, you'll be put into one of these two buckets. So individual program needs or local center staffing. That does not mean that you can't switch. So as your family situation changes, as your professional development situation changes, you can switch back and forth. It is intended to be flexible. We just want to be sure that you're respecting yourself and your own time, in addition to the families that will be served through this program.
Hey, Kayla, we had a question come in, and the question is, okay, Kayla and Maria, you guys are pretty busy. So who is going to be reachable if I become a helper?
That's fair. It feels a little personal, but that's fair. So we are thrilled to say that we do have currently, maybe you've seen it, a job posting out. It is on LinkedIn, and I will go ahead and drop that in the chat here.
Thank you.
We are hiring right now a part-time program manager for this pilot. So this is someone who is going to be available on the phone 24/7. So if there is an emergency call that comes in and maybe we need to send something out to our helpers, that's going to be your point of contact. This person is also going to be following up with families, following up with helpers, asking, how did it go? Where do you need support? How can we make this more successful for you and fit your needs? So if you have not already and you are interested in that, you do need to be in the Eglin-Hurlburt area. Initially, there will be a lot of boots on the ground work in the first month or so. And then after that, it will be pretty remote. Go ahead and sign up. We have that open for about another week, and then we're going to close that out. So if you are in the area, we encourage highly military spouses and family members to apply to this position.
Kayla, let's talk about emergency really quick, because I think that already can be, if I'm a helper, I'm thinking, wait a second. So when we're talking emergency, what we've seen, not just in the study here in working with leaders and families, but this has been nationwide, where what's unique to our military families when they don't have that community, some examples that we've run into where it is a dual, a 2-parent household, but somebody's deployed, somebody's, who knows, whatever's going on, someone's gone for training short term, and the other parent, either a child gets sick or they need to get called in for their job. Perhaps they're a first shirt and there's been, somebody made, a poor choice on any level and they need to go in right away. Well, if they don't have that community because they just got there, this is what we're creating here, is a safe emergency option. So emergency is really an emergency. Somebody goes into labor, right? And they need someone. That's what we're hoping to create here is, we already know you're doing the work in your community. And we want to acknowledge that, ensure you have all of the skills and training that you could need so that you're on the level of the DoD care that's available, that families know and trust. And then make sure you're being compensated for that investment in the community, because that is the critical work that's happening each day.
Yeah. And you'll see them categorized here. I'll show you real quick. You'll see that we kind of categorize, these are the slots we built out based on the landscape study that we did. So where do we think attention would most need to be? The 6 ad hoc, those are our ad hoc emergencies. So those are people who are willing to just jump in any given scenario. So if someone already had a private caregiver, maybe it's not an emergency, that would be an ad hoc. So someone already has a private caregiver, they're sick, they suddenly quit, they have someone new coming, they need someone for a week or two. That's our ad hoc. Then there's the emergency, like Maria discussed. It is the, I need it now, I need it in the next 6 hours, I need it quickly, and I need it safely. Those are who we're going to have step into those positions. And then, of course, we have our individuals who are looking for full-time work, our individuals who are looking for part-time work. They're looking for something more consistent, essentially. And then, of course, our substitutes. So those who are participating in that substitute provider pipeline piece. The almost next to last section that we're going to do here is just, I've heard a lot of families and leaders and organizations saying, why Eglin Hurlburt? Why not my area? Why can't you come to me? Where can we get this? And I want to say, first, I hear you. Heard. Second, this is the area where the local community, so I'm looking at you, Emerald Coast ELC, I'm looking at you, the Children's Movement of Florida, all of the people who are already saying we need help for our Florida families, they appealed. And that's why we went there. Operation Child Care Project had already been working with the 7th Special Forces Group because of that kind of logistical hurdle that happens with the Crestview and the Niceville and the Hurlburt and the Eglin. Recognized that the solutions that may work in other areas are not working there. The two came together. That does not mean we do not recognize this is a nationwide issue, that there is a need that far exceeds where our supply is currently. And we have every intention, when this is launched, of expanding this immediately to another location. So we are looking at what is our next location going to be. It's going to come down to that community piece. Where can we get the local community to say, we need this and we want to be a part of it? So if you're a helper who is not in the Eglin Hurlburt area, helper at heart, I guess, at that point in time, right? Because you haven't gone through our program, but helper at heart. And you say, I want this in my area, tell me about it. Because it is frequently our civilian people who are boots on the ground, working with providers and centers and families already, that know what the community needs. And that's who we want to talk to. We want to talk to the boots on the ground people. So please send them our way. And then our last one, let me get over here. I've already, just very quickly, this is what our initial pilot is. That does not mean that we're not going to get more helpers. We will be examining this quarterly. So how much demand do we have? How much supply is able to meet that demand? How many more would we need to make this more successful? We are just starting with 20, which is why you see this advertised as the inaugural cohort, because this is just our first iteration here. We do have 3 partnering centers right now. We do anticipate over 200 families being served as part of this pilot project in this first year, and as well as an additional 300 plus families served through case management. And so that is what's the education and support around all of their options as they navigating what military life looks like. Yeah. You may have remembered this. Someone locally had put out a call and just asked families, let's envision a world where safe, affordable childcare is a reality. What would you accomplish with that extra support? And I wanted to include some of these because that's what it comes down to, is that extra support. So what would you do if you knew there was a safe option available to your family in the area? How would that change how you made decisions about your care? How would that change your employment? How would that change whether you decide to stay in the military? How would that change encouraging others to join in service?
Yeah.
And that's really what we're hoping to look at long term in this program.
Kayla, you just gave me chills because this is so far beyond childcare as a nice to have. Like, we're so over that, right? We recognize that childcare when it comes to the military is directly impacting what you just said: retention, recruiting, military spouse employment, food insecurity, housing challenges, you name it, it all comes down to this. And so we are just absolutely excited to bring this tool in these families' options.
Yes. I'm thrilled to see what kind of feedback we get. And we, as an organization, have always maintained accountability and transparency in everything that we do. So you will absolutely hear about it as the data rolls out. We're not going to hold it for the entire year. We want you to see where things are flexing. So as we do those quarterly reviews on what is our utilization, where do we need to move, the public, will be aware of that, so that if you have insights, I want to hear them. We build everything from the ground up. So what are families saying they need? And then build our programming accordingly. So we're here at the end. I'm going to drop some links into the chat right after this goes out live, so I make sure that they're all clickable. But if you are a helper who does think that this could work for your family, you're intrigued, maybe it's something you haven't thought of before, but at the end of the day, it's a win-win-win. If you just trial it and then decide maybe you do it for a few families and then you're like, you know what, this isn't actually where I want to be, that is perfectly fine. Please consider joining us. The more helpers that we have in this area, the better we'll be able to demonstrate this harm reduction pilot that doesn't need to be done through, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't need to be siloed. It is a community effort. It is everyone serving together for the same end goal. You are already doing the work. We just want you to be recognized for that. You can learn more, including our frequently asked questions for this program at our landing page. I will drop that link in as well. We have a bunch of frequently asked questions and answers built out. It is also where you're going to find our application. I will link that separately into the chat for our helper portal. We're going to have those open for a couple more weeks. And if you have any questions about either of those or maybe something else with the program, this is the direct email to send for all Homefront Help Florida related questions. So Homefront Help Florida FL at occproject.org. Do you have any closing words?
Nope.
All right.
Wait to meet you. Yep.
Amazing. Well, we look forward to it, and reach out if you have any questions. Take care.